Hey guys, Political Junkie 2414 here, and welcome back to my next video. Today I'm going to be releasing my updated prediction for the 2024 presidential election. I'm doing this sooner than usual, because in the last Sunday, President Joe Biden dropped out of the 2024 race. Which honestly I think I had a sense was going to happen by the time I made my last prediction last Friday, between Biden and Trump. And so now Vice President Kamala Harris is the presumptive Democratic nominee. She is, in the process of choosing her running mate, but we've got a lot of new polling data out of the states over the last week, that shows Harris in some areas doing worse than Biden, in some areas doing better. But of course, polls are not everything, and I'm not going to be basing my prediction off of polls. You all know that I don't do that. Um, but I think that there's something to take into account. But generally, it seems that between the polls, between the enthusiasm on the Democratic side, um, Democrats feel like they've gotten a second chance at the presidency after feeling like Joe Biden's reelection campaign was all but doomed. I thought that personally, I thought that he still had a chance to win reelection, but um, I conceded that he was losing at the moment. And it seems that Kamala Harris, so far, is off to a good start with fundraising. Of course, we'll have to see what kind of running mate she picks. I'm actually not going to reveal who I think is going to be her running mate. Um, I am very conflicted on who she's going to pick, but I will make a video about that soon because time is of the essence. She needs to pick a running mate in the next week and a half to comply with the August 7th deadline in Ohio. But seems like but the problem for Donald Trump's campaign is that um, he was really winning based on making this election a referendum on Joe Biden. He was attacking Biden's age, he was attacking his economic policies, and while Harris has been a part of the Biden administration, she certainly does not have the same issues, the same liabilities that Biden does. That doesn't mean that she is an outstanding candidate by any means, but she definitely, I would say, is a better candidate than Biden, and she has um, really breathed some new life into this race. So we're going to get off to um, the prediction. So I'm filling out the safe states that'll go for each party by over 15 percentage points. We don't need to worry about these states. We know how they're going to go. Some states that would otherwise be considered safe, I'm going to put in likely. But, you know, likely is a big um, range for margins from 5 to 15 percentage points. So you can see with the bare minimum for the safe states, Kamala Harris is at 156 electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 113 electoral votes. Some of the likely states we'll get off the bat are Oregon, New Jersey, Delaware, Colorado, New Mexico. Democrats, these are the higher end likely states. I really think that the only one that would, under other circumstances, still be likely would be New Mexico. But Oregon, Colorado, Delaware, and New Jersey, these are all states that by probability are safe Democratic, and New Mexico is very close to being safe Democratic in probability, but um, they're just going to fall underneath 15%. And then when you look at other likely Republican states, we have states like South Carolina, Alaska. Um, these two states very easily going to go to Donald Trump. Um, Going to be on the higher end of likely. I think Kamala Harris will do very well in South Carolina with African American turnout, better than Joe Biden did. So I think she will keep the state under 15 percentage points. Um, and then you go up to Maine's second district. This district is very pro-Trump. Voted It was a Democratic district for most of the 21st century, but then Trump came along in 2016, won it by 10 points and against Clinton, and then by 7 points against Biden. I think he'll expand his margin from 2020 by just a little bit. And then in Ohio and Iowa, um, two Rust Belt states that were previously very competitive that have shifted over into being very Republican states. Ohio does have a very critical Senate race. Um, this November, which will be much closer than the presidential race. Sherrod Brown is fighting for his for a fourth term, but I will make an updated Senate prediction soon. It's almost August. I really am squeezing in these Senate prediction updates at the end of every month. I'm deliberating whether or not I'm gonna push it off to August, but that's besides the point. Both of these states, um, very, very strong states for Donald Trump. Of course, JD Vance, his running mate, is from Ohio. Um, he's not the best candidate. He only won his Senate race by 6 points in 2022 against Tim Ryan. I don't think he's going to have that much of an impact on the state as a whole. I don't think JD Vance is a very great running mate. He was the worst choice that Trump could have picked. Um, yeah, he's young. He appeals to the America First base, but again, Trump already was winning over that base that is his core support base of support, and he needed to really expand. He should have really helped himself here with his VP pick, and he did not do that. And a lot of Republicans are now seeing or are now starting to question Vance. That being said, I really, really doubt that Trump's going to replace Vance, especially after the RNC has already been held. Then you go to states like Florida, which have been historically very close, a very close state. Of course, the deciding state in the 2000 election. Even in 2004, voted for Bush by 5. Obama won it twice, and then Trump won it in 2016 and 2020, and actually expanded his margin in 2020. One of the few states in the country that shifted right, that Biden did worse than Clinton in. And so 2022 was a very strong year for Republicans. They won the governorship by 20 points, the Senate race by 16 points. I think Trump wins the state by you know, 8, 9 points. It'll be a very strong victory, but Democratic turnout in 2022 was very abysmal, and I highly doubt that it's going to reach that low again. Florida's a right trending state. Maybe in another 10 years, the default will be, um, 15 to 20 point GOP margins, but we're not there yet. That was an anomaly in 22, but it goes to show just how far right Florida has shifted. But I don't think it's going to reach that same level this year. And then our final likely Republican state is the state of Texas, a big boost for Donald Trump and his electoral vote count. Texas, it's a left trending state. I've said this many times before, has a competitive Senate race here, but that one that still leans Republican. But Texas has been a historically red state, still hasn't voted Democratic since Jimmy Carter in 1976. And while Trump has not been the best performing candidate in this state. Um, he's definitely, I would really be surprised if he ended up losing it. Democrats should keep an eye out on Texas. It could be the next Arizona or Georgia, and it is going to get closer in future election cycles, but I don't think that we're there yet. Democrats still have a lot to do in Texas. They have to really maintain their ground in the Rio Grande Valley. They have to expand in the Dallas Fort Worth areas, the Austin, Houston, San Antonio suburbs. And while they are continuing to do that, they have not done so in a point where they are putting Texas in serious contention. It's a lot bluer than it was 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, but it is still a red state by heart. And so then we go to the likely Democrats, some more likely Democratic states. We have Maine at large. I've seen a lot of people put this in lean. I really don't think Maine's going to be that close. I could see Harris winning it by 5 to 6 points. Clinton won it by just free in 2016. But Maine, it's a very historically blue state. Not a solid blue state, but hasn't the Maine at large has not voted for a Republican since 1988, I believe. Yeah, since Bush, and then Clinton has won or the Democrats have won the overall popular vote in the state ever since. And so I really would be surprised if Trump won Maine. I still thought that Biden would win Maine. Trump has a unique appeal to the state, um, and I think I really don't think there's a lot to talk about here. I could see it being lean if, Trump does, Trump exceeds my expectations in this election, but I am not holding my breath for Maine to go under 5 points. especially when you look at the vote tally in 2016 and you see third party candidates taking a lot away from Clinton. You can see Trump was only at 43% of the vote, and then in 2020 he got to 44% because there was less third party influence. Um, so yeah, I'm pretty confident in likely blue Maine. Then we go to New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a state that was being put in play during the final weeks of Biden's campaign, or the final weeks before Biden dropped out. But Kamala Harris has really turned the state around, at least according to the polling data. I did release some of my adjusted polling averages here, and if you use the 2022 polling error in New Hampshire, you actually show Harris up by 15 points. I don't believe that's going to happen, but I certainly think that it's it's a good. I think that the New Hampshire was really it has usually been very anti-incumbent presidents. Was very anti-Trump in 2020 compared to 2016. Obama, not so much, but it voted against George W. Bush. It was the in 2004 was the only state that voted for Bush in 2000 to vote against him in 2004. So it has a history of of voting against the incumbent president. Um, so I think that Trump, now that um, a lot of Biden's grievance or issues are out of the equation, Trump's issues with the state and his unpopularity in the state is starting to take more effect in how voters are planning on voting in this election. And then our final likely state for the Democrats is the state of Virginia, another state that was getting put in play in under Biden versus Trump matchup. Personally, I don't think Biden would have lost the state of Virginia. I really was very skeptical of the polls there. But Harris, um, I think Biden and Harris were very good for the suburbs in 2020 in Nova. I mean, any Democrat against Trump would do very well in the Nova suburbs. They've become much more democratic over the last few decades. A lot of population growth there. I think Harris would do well in Richmond and do well in the suburbs. She'd do all right in Virginia Beach, but really, I think that she'd maintain um, a strong lead in Virginia. I still think Biden would have won the state by like 4 or 5 points. I think Harris wins it by 6 or 7, as it stands right now. So then we get down to these last 104 electoral votes. Kamala Harris is at 215. Donald Trump is at 219. So pretty close election right now. These last few states I all expect to be under 5 points. So we're going to start off with the state of, or we're going to start off, we're going to go east to west. We're going to go to the state of Nevada, which I think that Kamala Harris is going to win narrowly. Nevada polls historically underestimate Democrats. Um, we haven't gotten a lot of, this is one of the states where we haven't gotten a lot of new polling data. We've gotten one poll, um, but this was before Biden dropped out. Nevada polls, I mean, I already said they overestimate Democrat or underestimate Democrats. Excuse me. And Democrats have a very strong history of holding. They are able to consistently win Nevada. It's a state that almost always comes home for them, and despite being very close, uh, I think Republicans have an opportunity to succeed here. Um, but I think Kamala Harris will energize young voters and working class voters in in the Las Vegas area, which has been trending right in recent years. I think she'll do better with Hispanic voters than Biden, and I think she'll maintain relatively similar ground with Biden in Washoe County, which contains Reno, I believe, or at least it's in the Reno area. So that is where I think Nevada stands right now. Um, it's a very close state, but it's good to bet on the Nevada Democrats. Nevada has almost in every election cycle, save 2020 for the last 10, 12 years, has overestimated Republicans in their polling averages, and Democrats just know how to get out the Reid coalition, which has brought them several victories in the state before. So, excuse me, just one second. Sorry, I was just adjusting my watch. Um, yeah, that's where I stand on Nevada. Arizona, this is a state that has really been very good for Trump in polling, even against Harris. Um, but Republicans have lost a lot of ground in Arizona since Trump came along. They've lost the last three Senate races. They've lost the governorship. They've lost the presidential race. And even in 2016, Trump did not win the state by a convincing margin. I really do think that, especially if Harris picks Mark Kelly, Trump's going to have a very hard time winning Arizona. Um, it's a very traditionally conservative state, much in line with the state of Georgia, which we'll talk about in just a second. Um, and I think that the growing suburbs of Phoenix and the population growth in Maricopa County and Tucson, um, the large Hispanic population, are all areas where Harris is going to do well. Um, and so I think that she does well. I think that she does better than Biden with Hispanic voters, and well with she does well enough with anti-Trump conservatives in Arizona, the McCain Republicans, to hold Arizona very narrowly for the Democratic Party. And so then we go to Minnesota, which um, is a closer state. I think that this state um, is going to be is trending right, but it has a very strong history of voting Democratic. Um, Even in 1984, voted for Walter Mondale as the only state in the nation that did not vote for Ronald Reagan. Now, of course, that was a very long time ago, and I think Minnesota has shown signs of getting closer in recent years, but working class voters in the state have not shifted as um, far to the right as other Rust Belt states. And I think Kamala Harris does well enough in the Minneapolis suburbs and the Minneapolis metro area in total, where she holds on to the state. Again, Minnesota's a reach state for Trump. I think that even if he does win the election, um, you know, if Harris loses Minnesota, she's losing the election. That would be a reach state. That's like a state like Virginia, New Hampshire. Democrats do not need to be focusing on Minnesota, but I think that right now, um, Trump does well enough, makes enough inroads with working class voters and rural voters, and Harris does, maintains most of the ground Biden made with Minneapolis, suburban voters in Minneapolis. Um, so yeah, I think that that's where I stand on Arizona, probably a 4 to 5 point victory for Kamala Harris. Then we go to Nebraska's second congressional district. I could see this being likely. I'm torn on it. It's the suburbs of, it's the Omaha area, very traditionally Republican, but has become very anti-Trump. Has a Republican representative in Congress, Don Bacon, who is running for re-election. Um, so I'm pretty confident in Democrats winning this congressional district, regardless of the candidate. Um, they'd really have to put up someone terribly to lose this. But of course, it's going to be close. I think it'll be a 4 to 5 point victory. Um, it's a left trending area. I could see it being likely, but right now, just out of caution, I'm going to put it in the lean category. Um, so then we're going to go down south to the state of Georgia. Trump and Harris, I think, are really deadlocked here, although the polling would suggest otherwise. Biden has not been doing well in Georgia for a very long time, but I think Harris kind of gives Democrats a bit of a boost here with minority voters and Biden's age and his you know, handling of the economy, both very big liabilities for him with swing voters. And so I think that, again, with Harris in the race, though she is tied to Biden, um, she's not as directly associated with it. She's not the incumbent president. And I think that Trump's issues really come back into the spotlight. Again, compared Georgia and Arizona with one another to um, traditionally conservative states that have shifted left in recent years. That being said, I think that Trump right now has the edge in Georgia. I think that it's very close. I think the suburbs of Atlanta will swing towards Harris and most likely any Democrat. Um, I think that Harris will do better than Biden in uh, oh God, I feel Fulton County, the county that houses Georgia, houses Atlanta. Can't believe I forgot that. It's been a while since I've looked at Georgia politics up in depth, and I think Georgia just I think Georgia stays with or it flips to Trump very narrowly. I think he does well enough in the um he expands enough in the rural areas. I think Harris maintains a lot of support with black voters more so than Biden, but I think the turnout issue is just um a problem for Democrats here. I could very well see the state voting blue. I think Harris has a better chance at winning the state than Biden did. I could very well see in my next prediction moving this into the Democratic column, but right now I'm just going to put it very, very narrowly in the Trump column, just to be safe. But it's very close. It's a coin flip. Then we go to North Carolina, a lean state. Again, another state where we don't have a lot of recent polling data out of here. Of course, Harris is considering picking Roy Cooper, the governor of North Carolina, who is term limited, to be her vice president. I don't know if Cooper would make it so that Harris would win the state. He'd certainly give her a much better chance. But regardless, the state is going to be close. And I think Harris, um, again, another state in as another state in the Deep South, she's going to do better with turning out black voters. She's going to do well in the suburbs. She's not going to be brought down by a lot of the liabilities that Biden's candidacy has. Um, I just think North Carolina, like Nevada, is a state that almost always votes a certain way, even though it's close. It's the inverse of North Carolina. Or of Nevada, where it votes Republican almost all of the time. It's not a state that is out of reach for Democrats by any means, but it's to get over to erase Republicans, typical 2 to 3 point advantage in the state. Um, those last couple of points is Herculean and would require everything to go right for Democrats. So I think Trump wins the state by about 3 points. Um, Pretty close state, but the most confident. I'm more confident about North Carolina than any of these battleground states. So yeah, that is where I would put it. Then we go to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, another very close state. Our first, of the our first blue wall state in the Rust Belt. Well, technically not. I mean, the blue wall is bigger than just Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. It's all the states that voted for Democrats from the 90s to 2012. But of course, we talk about the blue wall specifically with these three states. Wisconsin's a very close state. Um, Trump is currently leading in polling. This is a state where I'm not. Um, I think the polling in Wisconsin has surprisingly not been inflated for Trump. I think that this is a very believable margin for him, and I think Harris is going to do better with in college towns like Madison. She's going to bring out more black voters in Milwaukee. She's going to do well in the WOW counties. But Trump's still going to increase his margins in the driftless area, in the um, rural areas, and I think that he's going to hold on to enough voters in WOW to win the state narrowly. Um, it's very close, but I'd give it to Trump by about half a point. So that is where we are right now. So you can see here we got two more states left, Michigan and Pennsylvania. Harris is at 243, Trump's at 261. So these two, if Trump wins either of these states, he's going to win the presidency. Um, so Harris has to win both of these states to hold the White House for the Democrats. I'm going to give her Michigan, which brings her up to 258. I was debating between putting this in between lean and tilt. Um, I'm going to put it in tilt just to be cautious. The Democrats have a very strong record in Michigan over the past few election cycles. Republicans haven't won a statewide race here since 2018, or 2016, excuse me. And I think Harris is, again, going to do very well with with black voters in Detroit. I think that she's going to, um, like most Democrats, expand the the party's margins in Grand Rapids. She's going to suffer in some of the working class areas like Saginaw, Macomb, um, and Flint. So that is going to be a problem for the Harris campaign, but I think she does well enough in Lansing. She does okay in the Detroit suburbs. She does okay in Oakland County and Washtenaw County, where she's able to hold the state very, very narrowly. I'd say about half a point victory for Harris. So then we get down to Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral votes. This is the state that's going to decide the election, and I'm going to give it to Trump, which means that he will win this election, win the White House very narrowly against Kamala Harris. And the reason I'm giving it to Trump is because while Harris is going to do well in the Philadelphia suburbs, she's going to do well with black turnout in Philadelphia, and she's going to do well in Pittsburgh. I think that she's really going to struggle in Scranton. She's not going to do particularly well in the Lehigh Valley. She'll do okay in Harrisburg, but I think that she's also going to struggle in Erie and a lot of other working class areas across the state. And I think that she's just going to barely come up short in the state. I think I could see her. I think the Pennsylvania is a very close state. All of these states are very close. I could really make an argument for each of them um, going either way. Josh Shapiro being on the ticket, I think, would very much push the state into the Democratic column. But of course, a VP candidate can only add so much. We learned that with Paul Ryan in 2012 when he failed to win his home state of Wisconsin. Um, so I think Pennsylvania, very close state. I think that Harris just comes up very short in because of her decline in the working class areas. Um, and she just does not raise black turnout in Philadelphia quite enough to maintain to win the state. Because remember, Democrats margins in Philadelphia, um, the city itself, are shrinking. Even in 2022, John Fetterman, I think, had a lower margin or had a smaller margin of victory in Philadelphia County than Biden did. But the reason he won was because he did so well everywhere else in the state. Um, so I think that that is where you start to see, or I don't know, he might have actually had a bigger margin than Biden, but it was very similar. It was not something you'd expect when he did 5 points better than Biden did in 2020. So overall, this is where I stand right now on the electoral map. Kamala Harris wins or loses the election with 258 electoral votes. Donald Trump wins with 280 electoral votes, and so he is elected to a second term. This is a very close election. I could very well make see people's arguments for Kamala Harris winning this election. She's definitely, I think, going to pick up ground and improve across this map as we get closer to the election. But it's anyone's race here. I think that this is really going to be a very, very close election. I mean, if you look at the electoral vote tally, this would be the closest election since the 2000s, closer even than 2004. So we'll have to wait and see. It's really anyone's game here. Democrats have been given a lifeline with Joe Biden dropping out. I think Kamala Harris is a very strong candidate, but she has her own vulnerabilities, and I think if the election were held today, she would lose because she's running on improvised time. I think we have to see how who she picks as a running mate. We have to see some more polling data out of these states. And I think right now it's just I think it just makes sense to call Trump the winner, the favorite at the moment, but that could very well change. So thank you all so much for watching this video. If you like the video, make sure to like the video, like it, or hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Share this video with someone who you think would enjoy it. And comment down below who you think will win this election, and if you disagree with any of my picks for who will win these battleground states. And also let me know who you think that Kamala Harris will pick as her VP. That is something that I intend to make a video on very soon. And yeah, thank you all so much for your support. And I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things politics. See ya.